I want to talk to you about your progress as a runner, and maybe why you're not making the progress that you think you should be or that you want to be, and also why it's probably a lot more positive than you think it is and that you give yourself credit for. And I'm going to do that on the day of my longest run of my whole training block for Boston Marathon, because, well, let's just say progress for my training for Boston hasn't exactly gone to plan, and there's some things that I've learned in that time that might just help you. And also, it is a no hard sell policy when it comes to subscribing, but we are closing in on 100k and I want to do a big giveaway when we get there. So please, for a short time, I'm going to ask, subscribe to the channel, especially if you're a long time lurker. Just do me that favor, let's get to the 100k and then it will go back to no hard sell. But you want to hear about progress, so let's talk progress. Actually seems pretty fitting that you join me about a third of the way into my last long run of the entire training block for Boston. And progress I'm learning even in this run is not what I expected it to be. So I guess we start here. Now, there would have been a time when this run alone would have sent me into a spiral, because it's the last long run of the block. I'm hoping, or I was hoping, that it would feel great, and it absolutely feels the opposite. This is just like torture, and I'm only 12k into a 35k run, but there's a few things I know that help me deal with this. So what we want is progress, and we want it all nice and neat and without any issues. If you take our Boston Marathon training, I would have liked it if I'd have done more volume week on week, block on block, and I'd got faster bit by bit and just not missed a single session. But that's not the reality, not of the whole training cycle or even week by week. See, this run that I'm in, it's a classic example. Last week absolutely nailed it, 32 kilometers. This week, 35 kilometers, it feels like I'm running through treacle. You would expect the run to be another good one, right? Because we're building, we're progressing, but just not feeling it today. Although that 11 kilometers that I just knocked out was marathon effort stroke pace, so I can't be too down on myself. But it is, I mean, we're talking about 100% humidity right now. Like, I could wring this out, so it is making everything a lot harder. But it's not even just about each training block of a few weeks. It can be literally within one single session. Like this one, 35 kilometers of such different feelings. So what is progress actually? Just got back from the 35k and it was hard, like in parts, and then there was parts where it all clicked and then it went back to being hard. And it was just a reminder that one of the first things that it just brings to mind, I guess, when people say that they're not making the progress that they want, and it's that progress isn't linear. It doesn't just go like that. Even in today's run, even in this training block, it's been a much harder training block than it was for New York, for example. And look who I've found now. Poor Mary just had a bit of a torrid experience herself. What happened to you?
Well, I had a really good long run last week. It was a real confidence boost, and I was hitting faster paces, so I decided to run those for my marathon efforts today, but it was too much and I blew up, and that last 10k was a real battle of the mind, hanging on. Yeah, you look like you were going to be sick when you got back here.
I thought
I was.
So yeah, I mean, it's just another lesson in the kind of rich tapestry of running progress, that it's just not linear, even in weekly, even in session, is what I was just saying, is, yeah. You know, my first part of my session was very different to my second part, yeah. And sometimes the second part is different to the first part. It's just, progress just doesn't work like you want it to work. Yeah, halfway through that run I thought I was going great guns, yeah, and then it all fell apart, so we're always learning. Yeah. And that is it. All the training in theory done. Taper about to start. And that is what I was talking about earlier, is that this has been a completely different training block to the New York block, which was perfect, by the way. Nothing went wrong. We didn't miss a single run in New York, and yet I actually have missed, or at least switched, quite a lot of runs in this block, where I've gone on to the elliptical machine. I've gone from, say, maybe a 21k to a 16k. We've changed a few things, and you would think that each marathon training block, one after the other, would get better and better, and it's just not the case. But I'm not worried. I think we're going to be okay. I'm definitely going to be okay. Oh, that's so nice. So we all now agree progress is not linear, right? Well, this might surprise you, but let's just put this on a graph for a second. Hold up. We know progress is not linear, and we know how it works. But here's where I think a lot of newer runners in particular, this is where their downfall is. But here's the thing about progress. I don't think the lens is right to show you what I'm trying to show you. So I'm just gonna switch lenses, which is a metaphor. Clever Ben. So check this. So now look at it. Maybe we zoom out a bit. Maybe we're not looking at it through a wide enough lens. See that? Look, the lens you have to look through as a runner is a lot wider than you think it is. So when you look to see progress over months or even 1 to 2 years, now I'm looking at, yes, some years it's going to be lower, some years it's going to be higher. But if you think about Mary's journey or my own journey, we've had setbacks, we've had our down points, we've had our up points, and we keep knocking on the door. So consistency here is the thing that eventually, when you look at over 10 to 15 years, you are going to make progress. And it might not be as quick as you want, but if you stay consistent, it is gonna happen. But you can't look at it through a lens of 1, even 2 years. And that, my friends, is what I would call true progress over a period of a long, long time. But then you've got to think, like, what actually is progress? Is it getting faster? Is that what we think? So I kind of look at it like this. Getting faster is a good metric to judge your progress by. Of course it is. We want to get faster. I want to be able to run a faster marathon, but it's just one metric among many. And sometimes, in some seasons even, I don't get faster over a certain distance. I get slower. But here's some other things that we've seen in our journey over the time that we've been training that we certainly feel are successes. We certainly feel like a progress, but maybe we have to give ourselves credit. Maybe you have to give yourself credit for this. I'm definitely able to run for longer. I've run a 100-kilometer race. I've run multiple 50-kilometer races. I've run further in training while I'm training for marathons. In general, one of the things that I can now do progressionally is I can run longer distances. But also I run more consistently, so I'm able to run 4 to 5 times a week when it used to be 3 or 4. And I've built that up over a number of years, and now my body can tolerate back-to-back run days. In fact, last April, we actually ran 10 kilometers every single day. Okay, my body just about held up. There was a couple of days where I had to go on the elliptical there, but you know, it was near enough. I'm gonna give myself credit for that. And that is a success. That's massive progress. Didn't mean I was faster. Also, in general, I'm picking up less injuries, or I'm certainly skirting them. Whereas in the UK, my first 2 or 3 marathon cycles, I picked up injuries and didn't get to the start line in the best shape possible. Whereas recently over here, I've been able to train for the marathons and not pick up injuries. So there's another metric of success. Are you getting the pattern here? There's not just one. What about even I'm able to run certain paces with a lower heart rate now? And again, I consider that a success, because if I do want to run faster eventually, I'm going to be able to do it based off a bigger aerobic base. Maybe where I used to run 4:15 a kilometre in zone 2 this morning, even in the heat, I was ticking along at 4 minutes a kilometre in zone 2 for a while. Let's caveat that because it did climb. But even so, massive success, massive progress. So we need to get away from this narrative that the only progress that's worth it is that we run faster over a set distance, because we're just not being kind enough to ourselves. You've got to look at all of the progresses. So that's what we need to do. Be kinder to ourselves. And one of the best ways to make yourself happy and be kind to yourself, and by the way, a true test of progress, is to stop looking outwards. You see, it's very easy to look at people who start out at around the same level as you and see them make different levels of progress to you, and you can't help but think, why not me? But you're on your own journey at your own rate. And you could be that person that someone else is comparing themselves to. And everyone knows that comparison is the thief of joy. So the only person you should be comparing yourself to is the person you were yesterday, or last month,
or last year, because no one's progress is linear. But if you keep knocking on the door with consistency, you're going to see the progress in yourself. And it might not be that you get faster, but as we've already discussed, that's only one way to measure progress. As long as you can look at the person you were and you can see that you're better in some way now, and that you're also going to keep making more progress in the future, then that's enough. Don't look out, look in. It's the bit that you can control, and that should be enough.
And the last reason that we don't progress maybe as much as we'd like has actually got nothing to do with running at all. It's more to do with everything else that goes on around it and kind of being realistic with yourself. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to use diet to highlight the point, but it's not restricted to diet. It could be things like your strength and conditioning, your recovery routine. But diet is where I'm going to start because there was a very relevant case. So I should caveat this meal with, this is our typical Sunday meal, by the way. It's from a place called Salad Factory. We tried to eat healthy, but I'm just going to put it out there that last night we had pizza, okay? So it doesn't always work, but that's part of this whole story. So I once coached an athlete who was, really good runner actually, and wasn't making the progress that we thought they could or wanted them to make. And while we were trying to unpick this puzzle, what we didn't do is focus on anything around the running, like life, strength and conditioning and diet. But what we kind of established with ourselves as well, you can come in here, Mary, was that diet is a really important factor in your progress, i.e. if it is not on point, you may still make progress, but maybe not the progress that you want to make.
Yeah.
And sometimes you won't even make progress, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, and you could be running hard and training hard, and it's hard to understand why you're not making progress, so it's like an additional factor that can actually have a huge impact.
But what we're not saying is lose weight, get faster. That's actually a different video coming up. It's not like that. That's not what we're saying. But there is fuel for success and there is fuel for failure, right?
Yeah.
So progress, it can't come from running alone. It has to come from all of the other contributing factors, like your strength and conditioning, like your recovery, like your diet. Oh, I love edamame. We need to heat these up. Edamame, so good. Let us know in the comments if you've never had edamame. You really need to, right? And that's it. As you've seen, progress is not linear, and hopefully this video's helped you completely reframe how you look at your progress anyway and be maybe a little bit kinder to yourself. And if you liked the video, then consider subscribing. And also you're probably going to like this video, which is why beginner runners shouldn't run marathons. But as you've probably gathered with this channel, there's always a twist. Hope you enjoy. See you next Sunday.